Hey there, darlings. It's Quinn with PTSD, while black. Just doing a little bit of a connection here. I wanted to talk about my history with activism, being active in my community before my injuries. Um, but prior to the killing of Mike Brown in 2014, I was pretty much your average black person who was seeking the approval of white people. I was engaged to a white man. I was seeking and finding my worth within the goth community. Industrial dance music, which I really love. It's got a banging bass. But I was geeky, nerdy, and um, yeah, I was really trying to fit in with white people in a lot of ways because I didn't feel I fit in within the black community as someone who is a geek, who is a nerd, who actually loves goth music and goth clothing and dressing all in black and just being like hot. But anyway, so I went towards that community instead of looking for where are all the black goths, where are all the black geeks, and I'm grateful that I'm starting to find some of you, woohoo, who are also into Wicca paganism. That's more of my spirituality these days, paganism. Because I'm just, Christianity did not work out for me. I'm very much more earth-based. Anywho, so my history as an activist. Let's do this because I think part of the gang stalking is, I think I had made mention on Smule at one point that I'm a community activist and not a racist, because they were trying to say I was racist against Asians, and I'm like, you don't know who you're coming up against. That's not me. I'm really pro people of color. Really pro people of color. But before 2014, I wasn't. I was the whitest black girl you ever met. Oh my God. Just trying to get people's approval. And then I saw the killing of Mike Brown in Ferguson. And I remember talking to my husband going, I don't understand why this is happening. Why would they leave this guy's body in the street to traumatize an entire city for hours and hours? I mean, I'm watching everyone looking at Mike Brown's body laying there. And I'm like just realizing all that community had gone through. And I'm like, I don't understand. Why would the police do this? And it brought up that recognition that we go through where for people of color, we recognize we are not white. And there are different experiences for people who, when you're not part of the dominant culture, you have a different experience, period. And it was that recognition. I believed that we were all equals. I accept the indoctrination and the Kool-Aid that we drank as kids and got into civics and stuff like that. Thinking, yeah, okay, we're all equal. Martin Luther King Jr. fixed all of this. Malcolm X must be a bad man. Swallowed all the Kool-Aid, okay? Tennessee, like 1 out of 6 black students in the whole high school. Well, I think we dropped down to 4 or 5 by my senior year because some people moved away. But anyway, seeing this child's body in the streets, seeing his death created the confusion, created the conflict I didn't understand. And then my husband's like, oh, he must have done something, right? He must have done something. But I'm like, this person's hands are up. And then there was God, I can't think of brother's name right now. I've got a migraine. In New York, that started the whole I Can't Breathe movement, watching the cops pressing down on the dude's body. And he could not breathe. I'm like, there was no need to treat this person this way whose crime was selling stuff on the street. It wasn't drugs, you know what I mean? I didn't understand. I could not understand why these black citizens were getting different treatment for very minor crimes in comparison to anybody else. why is there such a payment of death for black people committing very small crimes, whereas you have white people who are robbing entire companies and some countries and slap on the wrist. I did not understand classism, didn't understand racism fully. I was going through racism on a job, and I didn't understand what was happening at the time. But it took my going through that particular job and then this killing in 2014, this series of killings. I watched so many police shooting videos that's what caused me to have complex PTSD around racial trauma. And the one that killed me was Tamir Rice, the little boy with a toy gun in the park. Someone called the cops on this kid who was just annoying people with a gun. And instead of reprimanding him, it was a death sentence for, I believe he was 11 at the time. It's a kid. Can you clearly see he was a kid? And I'm sure for many of us, his death is just there. Philando Castile shot in the car. So many that I couldn't help but feel that I needed to do something. I needed to do something. I felt like I needed to move, that I needed to contribute to my community. And we had just joined a very liberal church, and they had like potluck dinners after church, and the homeless could come and get food and stuff like that. So that was one way that, of serving the community. I'm like, what happens for Black community? How do we change our policing? How do we change how we address one another? In this church, they had a social justice committee. And I joined up because I was like, how can I be of service? Can I help hold space? I had just gotten my certification as a hypnotherapist in 2013 and hadn't actively been, well, I was taking some clients, but I hadn't really been using it because of zoning for the city that I lived in. I could not practice there unless I had a doctorate. I'm like, bish. Anyway. So I was like, can I do something that brings some kind of peace, some kind of ease, some kind of relaxation for the community? How can I be of service? And I felt the stirrings in me of, how can I change this? And I remember just going to protest because I didn't know what to do. And I now understand, for me, protests, movement, exercise, because the emotions and the words just aren't coming. It was such a helpful space and cleansing space to be able to say, I can't breathe, hands up, don't shoot, and Black Lives Matter. And I was like, okay, how can I create spaces for this? And so being on the social justice committee, eventually they needed officers, and they ended up making me the chair of the social justice committee as a new member. As a new member. This is a long story, so sit down, drink your cocoa, because, baby, it's got a lot going on into it. I know we're 8 minutes in. I'm like, damn. So I was our liaison with the Orange County, I think it's Orange County Congregational Community Organization or something like that, where the churches in the area would come together and work on doing demonstrations or getting information out about voting and things of that nature to the communities. And so I got to be our liaison to that group and would pass down, these are the actions or the activities that are happening in Orange County. What do we want to do? And that's kind of what my role was. And I did go to like some trainings and learning don't talk to the media. That was one of the trainings. I was not qualified to talk to the media. Lord, no. But like, how can we fix issues of like recidivism? When people come out of jail or prison, they're more likely to commit crime because they don't have opportunities to jobs, housing, or food and things of that nature. How can we create solutions so that people don't go back into the system, kind of thing? And so I got to work and go to like presentations from the sheriff's departments and things of that nature. And it was a lot of presentations from police departments at churches about how they handle policing in the area, and to hear the community's feelings about how policing is being done. And also to hear the feelings of the officers too. People couldn't understand that I had compassion. I'm like, I understand that you're doing a job, that you're fearful for your life and you want to make it home to your family. And there are people who are living their everyday lives that just want to make it home to their families too. And we can't all be seen as a threat. What is going on? Where does the healing need to happen? Right? So it was wonderful getting to go around and do those types of conversations and listening in, and bringing speakers to the church to do presentations. These were like after hours, not during church services or anything like that. We actually had Samira Rice, Oko, organized to have her come and speak. It was several mothers of people slain in police brutality came and spoke at the church. And it was just to give the community the space to actually hear these stories and to ask, what are the next actions we can take? But I'm not a very good organizer. I'm not very popular. I have social anxiety disorder. So I was just like, how can I make the arrangements or be the liaison and go between on things? What made me stop activism? As chair of the Social Justice Committee, here I am creating the flyers, doing the promotions, getting the words out of the things that our church was going to host from the community out to the broader community, getting the information out. One of the things that our group had voted on was to have, is it the burglars? The couple that stole documents from the FBI in the 60s during a boxing match. I can't remember. I think it was the burglars. And we had gotten an arrangement to have them come and speak and share their story and experience, because this was during the civil rights movement and the Vietnam debate. And so they were sharing their experiences. We had, let me stick to the story. Let's stick to this particular topic. There's a lot that happened with Social Justice Committee, but I want to go off topic. My favorite thing is that there was a trans woman in the group, and when this man would speak over me, she's like, "Excuse me, you are speaking over her." And when the guy would speak over her, she's like, "Excuse me, I used to be a man. You're not going to speak over me." So I'm like, baby, yes. Anyway. But we... At this arrangement to have the burglars come speak, there was this same older gentleman that, my girl, we would compare boobs. It was hilarious. But anyway, this guy who arranged for them to come, I did not know that he was working with it was like a local communist. Interesting that my brain's like, I don't remember the story. It was like a communist group. And I didn't know that it was a communist bookstore, and basically one of the things that group did, I researched it later, is they tend to take black people, set you up as the token person, or the, it's not spearhead, that's not the word, but you're basically to look like you're the leader of this movement, but in reality it's this communist group that is, pushing their agenda. And so basically I got used as their figurehead or what have you, for them to come and sell literature at the church. And I'm like, we should be doing full disclosure so that people know that if they're swiping their card, and especially some people who work for the government that come to the church, swipe their card, they know that they are making this purchase through this particular communist group. I felt like I had been betrayed, because I'm like, you were not clear with me, you were not upfront, and it just felt extremely hurtful, because I'm like, I have no associations with communism. I'm willing to learn information about different ideologies, but I'm not willing to just comply with things. I think I'm more socialist. I'm a weird libertarian socialist. I do not fit in anywhere. Those two don't go together. But um, Lord, um, so I was telling this guy that I was very upset that he had done this, and he's like, look, the Democrats are going to use you, so I might as well be able to use you too. This old white man said this to me. And I was just like, what the fuck? Really? Use me. Like, I have no autonomy, no humanity of my own. I am here in this room because I'm seeing human beings who look like me die. That's why I'm here. And you're using my emotion. You're using my feelings. You're using my needs to push whatever your agenda is. I am not okay with that. And I just, like, erupted. I was just like, oh my God, no way in hell. I'm not available for this abuse. And that was really hurtful. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to continue to volunteer with the Orange County group. I'm resigning as the chair for this committee because this is not, I do not want to be a figurehead that is being used or abused. No, thank you. I still worked with the Worship Arts Committee and the Young Adults Committee. I did other things within the church, but I was just like, I'm not doing this. And pretty much that's what a lot of political groups do to people of color. They will use our willingness to create change, our willingness to not see each other die. They will take that and use that emotion to push whatever their agenda is without any consideration or care for us. And the other example I had of that when I was working with the OCO group, I had just lost a temp job. I just gotten removed from an assignment. And I was like, dude, I don't have any work. And I was like saying they were doing this trip to Sacramento to, it was pretty much a police reform. I believe it was a police reform bill that they were working on. And I was like, okay, this was all before my concussion, by the way, you guys. So forgive me, my memory's so bad. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And I only had like 1 day's notice because I had just gotten released from the temp position. And I'm like, okay, I'll go. I'm down for the cause. I will be there. Can you book my tickets? I'll take a Greyhound bus by myself to Sacramento. And then try to meet up with you all later. Take a Greyhound bus. That's my willingness to show up. Okay. And I get there after making these sacrifices, possibly getting lost, doing connections to get to the church where the organization was going to be. And it was just like the effort that I made to show up and to be present was very much so dismissed by the white woman who was doing the organizing. And she had gone through her own hardships, and her family had gone through their hardships. And so I respect what their hardships were, but it was still that there was this privilege that she could not connect in with, that I'm mourning. I'm grieving the loss of Black and brown communities, members dying, and that it just was not understood. And one of the things that they were doing is they were taking people who were the parents or the family members of someone who died in a police shooting around to the elected officials to tell their stories, to relive their pain in front of the elected officials or in front of their staff. Okay, that's what they were doing. And so people were being used as props to push this reform bill without any consideration for the humanity of the individuals that have really had a loss. And I was just so upset because we were doing this tour. We were at our representative's office, and the representative wasn't there, and the office staff is like, oh, you need to leave. And the chick's like, well, she's taking pictures of everything on the wall, of like maps and designs and things of that nature. And they're like, you can't do that here. She's like, we pay our taxes. We get to do this. We voted him in. We get to da-da-da-da-da. And like, as the Black couple is slowly trying to tell their story to the office staff. And I just felt it was very painful and disrespectful. She's right. We have every right to do this. We have every right to be here because this is our election. We have every right. But are you dismissing the humanity of these individuals right here? That was hurting my feelings. And so it's pretty much like, you're going to have to make an omelet. You crack a few eggs, but it's black eggs that get cracked, and there's no caring about the emotion that's going on. So that ended my career in social justice. After that happened, after the time that I'd put in to try to be there, and after I saw how the real issues of people were being dismissed, I said, I can't do this. I'm going to try to organize in different ways. And I worked with another person. She's from Hawaii. She's part Hawaiian. And we're both pagan. And she's like, oh, let's create a United Pagans of Color group in Orange County. Because for a lot of us, we're a very small group of people who are practitioners, and because, at least in the Black community, if you're not a Christian, you're just, that's what my experience was, especially in the South. And so we were like, okay, we're going to create a space where pagans of color can come talk about what their experiences are. And it would be for pagans of color and their allies to be present. And again, I realized that I did not need to be doing this. I needed to have been allowed to be just someone who showed up at an event and not to be the person managing the event when I'm going through the grief and the loss in my community. I needed the time to process the grief and the loss, but this is just what became the awakening. Because even in the United Pagans of Color group, there was the same thing of where I felt that my energy to create change got used, but the actual needs that I felt that I had at the moment were not heard. And it just broke my heart. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And plus, most of the people were actually allies at that group. And I'm grateful for the efforts that were made. And I think that the other organizer, who I helped her do a lot of the structure, she's continued the group. But I needed to have been grieving. I needed to have been given myself permission to grieve. I had PTSD, complex PTSD at that point. And this was before my car accident, by the way. All this is before my car accident, before the concussion. I had to decide for myself that what my activism needed to look like was healing communities. That's what my activism needed to look like. There are other people who can pull people together. There are other people who are great orators. There are other people who are excellent organizers. I'm a healer. That's what I am. And I need to be within that space of who I am and what I am. I'm a healer. I listen to people. And I get people to listen to themselves. That's where my energy is. And so I just decided that my activism was going to be holding space for communities to talk about what their experience is like, about being policed. And I was just like, I'm going to hold healing circles, small healing circles. I'm going to hold circles where youth can do performances and things of that nature at the church. And so that's where I just kind of switched to this like little side role. But I could not do this being used. I did not like being used by anyone. The one thing that, I don't know about everybody else, and I don't speak for all Black people, but one thing that I'm finding is part of my healing journey is owning my autonomy, my fullness as a human being. And in activism spaces, there are people who are just going to use you, no matter where you go. Especially as a Black person, they're going to use your energy to create change. Not without any care for the grief that you're going through or the actual needs of your community. It's just to push their agenda and to say that they are right. And I just could not do that. I don't have that spirit. That's not me. I will show up at a march or a protest. Yes. I will walk. Yes. Yes. I will go and build signs. Yes. I will negotiate with the church on asking if we can hold space. Yes. But to be the main organizer, no. That's not me. My activism today, and especially because of the concussion and the car accident, my activism today is really holding space for Black women to be their whole selves. I volunteer. I volunteer in a support group that deals with under-earning and under-being. I volunteer in a support group that addresses codependency. I volunteer in those spaces. And right now, my focus on sponsorship is only with Black women, because I learned in my own healing journey, I didn't listen to Black women. I didn't listen to the pain of other Black women, and I didn't listen to my own pain. So part of my amends, part of my healing, part of my restorative justice that I am doing to restore justice to my community and to be a useful member of my community is to listen to Black women and to get Black women to listen to themselves. And then the other part of my restorative justice is my children's entertainment company that I was launching, Quinn's Twisted Artwork, where I do balloon art, because I think and I feel it's so important for children of color to be able to see themselves reflected in the art that is created, so that you can see, you want a little Black princess, you can get a little Black, you want a little Black mermaid, I will make you a little Black mermaid, okay, baby? It's just to see that joy is available, that they do have choices, that they have options, that their creativity is valid. That's what my activism is. And if that's a threat to anyone, why? Ask yourself, why is that a threat? And just be honest with yourself, you know? And that's part of why I'm being gang stalked today, is because I've just made it my mission to create spaces specifically for Black women to know themselves. And the gang stalking for me started because I was going to, after watching a police shooting video, I had a severe PTSD episode. And I was in a space, in a karaoke space and a voice acting space, where most of the people were white and have not been dealing with activism. Most of my recovery from my brain injury in the car accident, I have been around people who respect people who are differently able. I've been around people who respect people of different races. And I was like, oh, Quinn, you're in wide society, the entire society, having a PTSD episode. And it was not received well when I said, I'm going to create a group for people of color who are voice actors, singers, and writers who want to write scripts on this particular app, so that we can create projects and group performances that represent our experiences. That was my vision. That's what I was working on. That's what I wanted to do. And someone saw that as a threat to the group that I was already, but people join multiple groups, but someone saw that as a threat to the group that I was already in for voice acting, and really took that as if I was betraying them because I was making a space for people of color. And no, she was not a person of color. So that's part of the hounding. And then the other part of the hounding is there was a white guy who said he was very active. And I was like, yeah, you're into activism. This is cool. I like that. Let's bond on this. Let's bond on activism and spirituality. Oh, that's my thing, y'all. And it's just his story that he tells. And oh, it's so complicated. But anyway, that was the hook for me, was being with someone who is also an activist and says that they believe Black women, but they don't do it in practice. It's just his way of trying to get laid, y'all. Trying to get that cred, trying to get a cookie. No. No cookie. So I really, am I somebody who does financial organizing? No. Do I get people to march in the streets? No. I hold space. I hold space. I realize at this point, all my activism needs to look like is to hold space. For people to come here and be safe with me in the space that I'm in. That I hold a room where you can be a whole hot mess. You can cry your eyes out. You can ugly cry and be angry. And you're accepted here. That's my activism. And it's not popular, apparently. It's especially not popular for allowing people to be their authentic, whole selves and being returned to their autonomy. And that's why I'm being stalked. So I wanted to make this video because I know there are people who've participated in the gang stalking that may be watching this. There are people who are surviving gang stalking who may be watching this. There are people who may be investigators that are watching this, because I'll have to make another video because this has gotten too long, but I want you to know who I am before you judge me. I want you to know who I am. And it's my responsibility for you to know who I am. It's my responsibility to get that out there, not anybody else's. So yeah, I refuse to be used by anyone, and that makes me extremely unpopular, which is kind of what the organizer in this one acting group wanted to do. She wanted to use me to harass another member, and I said no. I'm not available for that. And so that's how I became a target. They just created enemies and told people stories. So I'm getting to tell my own story. That's who I am. And I hope more people take up this form of activism. That we heal ourselves, we love on ourselves, we process our feelings, we know who we are, and that we can be safe and loving people for others. Till next time. Peace.